welcome to the beginner's guide to progressive metal. Now, I recently did one on melodic death, and we're going to do the same rules on this video. So the first three albums we're going to talk about are the essentials. These are the classics, these are the ones you need in your collection and you need to hear right now. The next three are also pretty essential albums, but they are ones that could maybe help you get into another genre, say death metal, black metal, and so on. And the last three, wildcard picks. Ones that I just really love and I want you guys to listen to. So, just like the previous video, I want you guys to pop down below what albums would you have in all of those spaces. What albums would you say are classics? What albums would help people get into other genres? And what are your wildcard picks? Let me know and let's get started with this list. So the classics. This one's always the easier one. Because it's generally, most people agree on the classics for most genres, and this one's no exception because Operation Mindcrime's coming here. Operation Mindcrime! Yeah. It's a classic for a reason. I famously hated on it, saying I couldn't get into it, but once it clicked, once the concept album clicks for you, there's no going back, and every song is perfect. It's a story from start to finish. A lot of progressive bands kind of have these overarching stories, and like these just, concept albums where the whole album just, bleeds into each other, kind of like Metropolis Part 2 with Dream Theater. But Operation Mindcrime has got to be one of the best. The little inserts, the speaking sections, it feels like you're watching a play, and I loved it. As soon as it clicked, I loved it. Maybe it won't click for you straight away, but give it time, give it more listens, because it's one of the greatest concept albums of all time, therefore one of the greatest prog albums of all time. Next up is Dream Theater, of course, but we're not going to go with the concept album. We're going to go with Images and Words, the album that made them big, my favourite album, the album that got me into them, and the album that they got, the big hit with, Pull Me Under. Now, Pull Me Under is a very good song to get people into progressive metal. It's not overly long, it's not got so many bells and whistles, but it does have a great solo, and it does have catchy chorus, so that's probably why it's the biggest hit, because it is more accessible. And if you can get into that and the rest of the album with other better songs on, like Metropolis Part 1, Miracle and the Sleeper, Under a Glass Moon, Take the Time, some of the best songs ever written, you'll be able to enjoy progressive metal pretty much. So, yeah, Dream Theater has to be on this list. Come on, you can't have a prog metal list and not have Dream Theater here. Images and Words is my pick. Yep, it's coming here. Next up, of course, Tool. I think Tool is pretty much a staple in prog music. I'm going to go with Lateralis, which just is a mind-melting, mind-boggling experience with different rhythms, different changes. It's not structurally sound. It's all just very strange and avant-garde, but it works so well, and it has this rhythmic kind of pulse to it, which keeps you entertained the whole way through. And Lateralis, just come on, it's one of the greatest albums ever made. Bias is here as well, but it is in a lot of lists of the best prog metal album ever, so I'm putting it in the essentials. From that art, you know what you get yourself in for. It's one hell of a trip, and it's one you have to have in your collection, and it's one you have to experience. Tool isn't a band, it's an experience. Spoken like a true Tool fan. So, the first one in the next row, we're going to talk about Symphony X with the Divine Wings of Tragedy. Divine Wings of Tragedy, one of my favourite progressive metal bands, and Russell Allen's vocals are just probably the best of the bunch here. His vocals are insane. That's one thing you'll learn about progressive metal. The vocals are amazing. And I think this album will help people get into power metal. Symphony X is a band which mixes power and prog so perfectly, and I think it showcases it well on this album. It does feel like Dream Theater, but, everything is just a bit different. It's like Dream Theater, but different. There's a bit more power elements, the singing is a bit more operatic, more powerful than Screechy, so yes, Symphony X, it has it all, and I think it will help people get into power metal. Next up, Between the Buried and Me with Colours. That's right, and they did a sequel years and years later, Colours 2, which is equally as good, but we're going to go with the classic, the very first, The Colours. This is another mind-melting experience like Tool. But unlike Tool, where it feels like you're on an acid trip, this is very mathematic, very just the changes are just so strange. It's very jazzy as well. This would help people get into metalcore. It has a lot of metalcore elements, the singing especially. A lot of metalcore elements, so I think this would be a good bridge gap to metalcore bands, and also mathcore. Metalcore and mathcore, Between the Buried and Me, would help bridge the gap for, so I've got to put it on one of the essential lists, and also Colours is just it's a perfect album, so it's got to come here. Next up, come on, I can't not talk about Opeth. They're one of my favourite bands of all time. We're gonna go with Ghost Reveries. I know Blackwater Park is an essential listen, so I advise you to also listen to Blackwater Park, but Ghost Reveries, in my opinion, is not only a bit better, but also it's a bit more easier to get into. The songs like the classics like Ghost of Perdition, that's one everyone knows, that's one that gets a lot of people into the band. That's not on Blackwater Park, that's on Ghost Reveries. You got Baying of the Hounds, such an intense song, that one. Beneath the Mire, a more kind of circus-like song. You got some acoustic stuff as well, and then you have like Reverie, Harlequin Forest. Oh, if you can enjoy that, you can enjoy anything. It's amazing. It's folky death metal band, and yes, it's progressive death. So this will help people get into death metal. If you can get into this with Mikkel's deep guttural growls, you'll be able to get into some death metal, maybe even Death, Bolt Thrower, cool stuff like that. Gotta love Opeth. Gotta put it here, but I'm putting Ghost Reveries here. So now we're on to the wildcard picks, and first up, we're going to go with Mastodon with Crack the Sky. That's right. Mastodon, they started off as like a sludgy kind of band, then moved more progressive with Leviathan, Blood Mountain, but then Crack the Sky just went full-on progressive, concept-y metal, and it's trippy and it's insane. It reminds me of Lateralis, just heavier. It's like a heavier Lateralis. Some of these songs, like The Last Baron, like quite lengthy as well, like 10 minutes or so long. But they keep you engaged the whole way through. Catchy choruses as well, like on Oblivion. Divinations even has a banjo solo. Yep. Mastodon's Crack the Sky, it's a 10 out of 10 album, and I've gotta represent it on this list. Next up, we're going to talk about Cynic with Focus. You want something a bit different? You want something avant-garde and jazzy? Something underappreciated? Cynic with Focus. This is death metal. This is jazzy, progressive death metal. Opeth more on the folky, black/death metal, but Cynic is pure jazz, proggy death metal. And if that sounds good to you, if that sounds gravy to you, then definitely check out Focus, because it's one of the classics. People love it. People love it. You either love it or you hate it. I'm on the love side. Got to give some credit to Cynic, so definitely check this one out. Last but not least, I'm going to talk about Devin Townsend. That's right. A lot to choose from Devi, because he has a lot of bands, a lot of goddamn albums. We're going to go with Ziltoid the Omniscient, which is another kind of concept album about this alien creature who wants coffee. Sounds ridiculous, but it's amazing. If you like, something a bit funny, but also the songs hit hard, and it's Devin Townsend, he can sing amazingly. He's one of the best singers on this entire list. You just go listen to Devin Townsend live on YouTube, and you'll know that he's one of the greatest singers ever. This is a funny album, it's a great concept, the story is hilarious, the back and forth between the characters is great. It's just one of the best progressive metal albums of all time, and I love my black coffee, so yeah, that's going to come here as the last wildcard pick. So, those are my selections for the most essential prog metal albums for you guys to check out for beginners. So let me know down below, do you enjoy any of these albums? What would you add? I mean, I've missed off Fate's Warning, I've missed off Pain of Salvation, but we only have 9 slots, okay? We only have 9 slots. But let me know down below anyway, and we'll see you again on another Quest for Metal.